Yo. Welcome back to another episode of Don't Let That Go Over Your Head podcast. Today's, of course, I got a special guest. Man, she came in a feeling today. I really wanted her to come. She's very dope, but I want her to tell you who she is, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit more because I know she's going to be very modest, but I find her very, very dope, and I wanted her on here very bad. So let her tell you.
Hey, my name is Jessima, and yeah, I'm a teacher in Brooklyn, and I do real estate stuff with Q. And my boyfriend also does real estate stuff with Q, and Q's lit.
But guys, let's give her a round of applause. Let's welcome her. Let's make her feel comfortable. I want her to talk to you guys the way she talks to me. I want you guys to give her a nice welcome. Her name is Jessima. She's very, very educated, very smart, and also very versed. And one thing I do value about her the most is she's very strongly opinionated, but positively opinionated. She's very open-minded to life, and I love this about her. She actually came to my book listening, and she made me actually go into my book, which is out right now, The Art to Reprogramming the Mindset. She actually gave me insight on changing certain content that was in the book. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm very, what's the word? I'm a Taurus. So Taurus tend to be very stubborn. But she made valid points. And I said, you know what? Let me go into this book, open it back up, and actually fix some of the content that she actually talked about with me. It wasn't personal. It was actually better. She gave me great ideas, and I love her for it. But today we're talking about mindset. Mindset, the mentality, the mental demon that a lot of people fight and face every single day. Today we're talking about something that I wish more people would talk about because there's a lot of things that's going on culturally that a lot of people don't like to talk about. First topic, Jessima, I want to throw at you right now is something called mental health. Does mental health play a role with people having a poor mentality or a mindset?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, if someone struggles with depression or anxiety, like, their brain is wired differently. Their brain chemistry is different. So if they're in a period of depression, right, like, it's going to be hard for them to have that optimistic mindset. And it's not going to be their fault. It's going to be a struggle for them to get out of. They'll need support of friends and family and possibly a professional therapist, medicine. So mental health, like when we're talking about taking accountability and being our best selves and the best version of ourselves,
Okay.
that can be really hard for someone to do if they're struggling with something that's out of their control. That's literally just part of their wiring, part of their DNA. So I think that, like, it's so important to have people like you, Q, like
I appreciate
trying
you.
to rewire mindset and give people the motivation that those motivational speakers and even those self-help books are so important. But what some people don't understand is people who really struggle with like severe anxiety and depression, like it takes more than just like a pep talk, right? For them to get back on track and to be passionate and to pursue those passions and to be successful in life, right? So I think that's just really important to keep in mind when we have these conversations.
I agree 100%. That was actually really good. And, the summary of what you just said, I agree with everything you just said, to be honest with you. I realize that mental health plays a major part in why a lot of people aren't getting to the levels that they really want to. And, one thing I've realized is even with trying to help, I've noticed that a lot of people don't want to accept that they need help. So we're in a world where a lot of people tend to not realize that there's a problem. But in every recovery or any AA or any clinicals, rather, right? Mental clinicals, right? These people, first thing they say is the first step to recovery is admitting that you have a problem. The first step. I think a lot of people don't want to take the first step. I think a lot of people don't realize that they do have mental health illness and they have issues. For me personally, going through a lot of things I went through, I had to go to therapy. And therapy to me was good because I was able to voice myself to people and they made me comfortable to talk about prior issues and problems that I've been through that plagued me way longer than I thought. In my mind, I can say it out my mouth that I'm over it. But when certain situations remind me of it, it always showed that I really wasn't over a lot of the traumas. So now that's me fighting against myself. I realized that I was my own demon because I didn't want to seek therapy. And now that I'm much older, I'm comfortable enough to say to myself, like, look, everyone should seek some form of therapy. There's a lot of people base how strong they are and they put that as the totality of the world. Everyone doesn't manage and maintain the same level of strength, whether psychologically, physically, emotionally. Someone can lose a parent and it could be traumatic for the rest of their life. Someone can lose a parent and they can get over it, and they can both have the same equal amount of love for the parent, but yet and still this person has a different level of mental strength. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think there's a huge stigmatism around mental health that, there's been a movement in that where it's becoming more normalized, but especially depending on someone's background or their culture, like there can be even more stigmatisms around that
Mhm.
based on where someone's from, based on their family support system. Like some families are really against it. Some people are just like, hey, just like I have friends, I can talk to my friends, I can talk to my family, but it doesn't truly substitute talking to a professional if
Great.
you are suffering from clinical depression or anxiety.
I agree. Like for me personally, I think one thing I did suffer from personally, what I used to have a victim mentality. And what I mean by the victim mentality is I always felt like the world was against me. I wanted everyone to feel sorry for me to the point where I basically crippled myself because I didn't want the world to basically to say, I wanted the people to say like, yo, you're a victim of circumstance, and your father not being there in the neighborhood you grew up in. And I wanted all of those excuses to be the reasoning why I was allowed to fail. I feel like I wanted people to allow me to fail and for me to be acceptable while I'm failing. Do you notice that a lot of people play the victim mentality in today's society?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, being an educator, I see it with students all the time. And that's where being an educator, you need to really be your kids' biggest supporters. Like, you
Agreed.
need to give them those kudos and not just like generic things like, oh, great job, Jimmy. Like, you want to get to know your students and their strengths, and everyone has different strengths. Like, we're at a point where we know that, like, passing a test doesn't mean that you're smart, right? Like, there's all kinds of different intelligences, and kids some people are just better with their hands, like kinesthetics. Some people are more audio learners or visual learners. So it's like there's just so many ways you can be intelligent and show that. And some people are more suited to trades, and some people are more suited to science and English and da 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 da. But it's finding what makes that kid, that student unique, finding their passions and helping them actualize them and figuring out a plan, right? Like, it's great to be like, yeah, go to college. I work at a prep school where we make sure that all of our kids apply and get accepted to college, but without a realistic plan of like not even what they want to major in, because you can have an interest. I had an interest. I studied anthropology for my first year of college, and then
Mhm.
I had a really real archaeology professor who was like, this is a very competitive field. There's not a lot of directions you can go. Like, you either get your PhD and teach, or, there's some jobs in the government sector that pay pretty well, but there's not a lot of them. So just be prepared for that. And honestly, I was like, I'm not prepared for
So
that.
you decided not to.
Yeah, no, I was like, I also really was interested in marine science and learning more about the programs that offer that.
Mhm.
It gives you that hard science background I had to take: chemistry, physics, calculus, biology. And so that gave me more options. I knew it would give me more options, and it did. I ended up being a biology teacher. And so I think like it's we're at a point where we can't just be like, yeah, go to college, yeah, study something you're interested in. We
Agreed.
have to figure out like what career do you want and really prioritize internships not only in college, but as early as possible. Like, I'm talking elementary school, like getting those kids in professions and shadowing the people who have careers that they're interested in. Like, we have career days all the time for little kids, but like can actually get them in those workplaces. And I think like, yeah, we just need to be realistic because we're in a recession.
We are
Right? Like, and not forever, but I mean, we want
a recession. A recession. You got a bomb to that. We are in a recession.
right? So like, I don't want my students to go off to college and even like just teaching them those practical skills where like if we hold their hand for the entirety of high school, they're going to get to college, we release them and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to self-advocate and reach out to the professors when they're missing work, when something goes on in their life, like they have a loss in their family and they're out for a couple of weeks. If you're not communicating effectively with your professors,
I
you could
agree.
end up failing the entire semester and losing a ton of money and getting set back and then ending up in a really negative pessimistic place where it's hard to dig yourself out of that hole and get back on track. So, yeah,
We should talk about that too.
yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, what you're saying, I agree 100%. But like when I talk to like a lot of people, and it frustrates me. And the reason why it frustrates me because like it's like you'll watch people dig themselves into a hole. Literally, you'll watch them, and it's so transparent to you the decisions that they're making, and they can't see it themselves. Like for instance, I broke down a scenario with a guy the other day, right? And I want you to follow me with this one. I said, bro, you called your marijuana dealer, right? He goes, yes. You sat there, you waited for your marijuana dealer to come to you, right? He goes, yes. After your marijuana dealer pulls up to your house, right? You walk outside the house, right? You go to the car, there's a transaction that's made, right? So meaning he gave you your substance and you gave him your finances, and then you walked back into your home, rolled your situation, and then walked in the backyard and smoked, right? And it's a continuous habit to the point where you don't see that it's plaguing a lot of people. Listen, I understand that we live in a culture now where, with the victim mentality, is also we live in a hip hop driven culture, and a lot of people don't realize that hip hop is a very small amount of people who really live this lifestyle. It's bad when humans who work 9 to 5s and regular jobs trying to mimic what hip hop is. I'm not gonna blame it totally on hip hop, but it definitely plays a major part. You see a lot of people, they live with the hip hop mentality, like, you know what? I get up every day, smoke weed, chase women, and waste all my money on living this fake lifestyle. And then they ultimately don't realize they'll never get to levels because it's not realistic. And then when you tell them, like, look, this is not real. When you look at social media, right? Social media gives us a great lens and a great window to what real successful people look like. I've noticed that we tend to follow people that aren't really the level of success. When you say names that are successful to me, I see Bezos, I see Musk, I see Steve Jobs with the legacy that he left behind. Even in his grave, his family will always eat off the residuals of what he created in his garage, which is Apple. I find these people, I find Buffett very enticing. I find Sean Carter, Jay-Z Combs, and Puffy Combs, rather, as good influences on what success looks like. I follow 50 Cent and his work ethic. Anyone that sees this sees that these people work very, very, very hard. But I've noticed in this microwave generation, the mentality and the mindset has changed. Like, yo, I can work very, very minimal, but I'm gonna have very, very great results. And I find that to be disheartening because I'm like, I'm a very hardworking person. I'm scratching the surface with levels of success, but I'm doing okay. But I still have to know that I gotta continuously work hard because it's in order to sustain and maintain anything, we have to work hard. Do you think that today, in today's society, that a lot of people think that they're gonna instantly become successful without putting in real levels of work?
Yeah, that instant gratification culture is like where we're at with Gen Zs and millennials and I don't the newer ones that are coming up, but like I don't know what that generation is. Anyway, yeah, no, I think with Uber Eats and Grubhub and TikTok, like we're just so used and Amazon Prime, right? We're so used to receiving things
Instant.
immediately.
Instant.
Spotify, like we used to have, CDs that only had so many tracks and tapes, right? And now
Yes.
we just like we pick a playlist that sounds like the genre or the artist that we're interested in and boom. Like So it's very real. It's very real, and because of that, I think we're finding with the millennials that are now in the workforce and out of college or still in college, they are struggling. They, don't want to work hard, and beyond just a normal 9 to 5, we're learning that investing in real estate is really, how you can create that generational wealth,
Yes,
and like sustainable wealth and get that passive income. Like, I've heard that our generation probably won't get social security. So
agreed.
like a normal job is important, and feeding into a retirement plan and savings is important, right? But like,
Will it be enough?
will it be enough to
Will it be
have that
enough to
safety net?
retire?
Yeah. And I think like something that I didn't even think about, like, of course, thinking about 9 to 5s, right? And getting an idea of what those are like through shadowing opportunities are important, but also having some more of that real estate and investing education
Agreed.
in as part of an established curriculum in public schools, well, in all schools, right, is important. So yeah.
So let me ask you this question. And for me, based on what you said, I agree. So do you think the environment, right, and the influences in these environments are in social media and in platforms? Do you think they play a major part on why the microwave mentality has gotten so heightened to the point where you think that like people think like that because it's like if I look on social media, it's like a highlight reel of all your greatest moments. So people feel like, hey, this person lives this superstar lifestyle every single day, but they don't see the work behind the scenes. Do you think that's what it is, the environment and influences?
Definitely. I'm already at a point where I see people around my age going on these vacations, but I know that they can't afford it. Like,
I
they're putting
agree.
it on credit cards or they're living paycheck to paycheck.
I agree.
And it's like, again, it's that instant gratification. They want to go on these vacations now. They want to live it up like they've earned it. And I think that we have this mentality, like I know I have, where it's like I was in school most of my life. I'm still in a grad program now for teaching, and on top of that, I'm a full time teacher, and I find it really hard to kind of pursue those side hustles and really put a lot of time and effort into those outside pursuits of like real estate and investing. I think like, oh, I have this crazy commute. I work in a charter school, so our days are crazy long. I have to grade on weekends. Like, I don't have time, but I know that I do have time, right?
Agreed.
So, but like, because I'm part of that generation, I'm trying to like untrain myself into thinking like, oh, like treat yourself. Like, I've earned this. Like, no, like I need to keep working hard, because if I don't, then I'm gonna be screwed in my later years when I can't work anymore, especially like.
I agree. I think that doesn't exist anymore. I think the delayed gratification, it doesn't exist. People don't believe in delayed gratification. They want, we can look at like I always tell people, you can cook a pizza in a microwave, but you could also cook a pizza in the oven. Everyone knows the oven pizza tastes 10 times better, but yet and still, people want it so fast, they'll eat something that tastes not as good because it comes out faster. And I find that to be crazy. So I'm like asking myself, is this an environmental thing? Is it an influencer thing? What is it? Is in the mindset is like for me, I'm like I don't get it, and I'm trying to learn. Like even with dealing with my son and my children, I see certain things like, you know, they think that what you've accomplished tends to be their levels of accomplishment. I think parents' jobs is definitely to make their children life easier, but I think they misconstrue with making it easier and you just being lazy. And I'm starting to see like, look, I got us to this level by working this hard. What makes you think in order for you to stay in this environment that we currently live in, you could work at this level? It doesn't make sense, especially when you haven't accomplished anything. And I talk to him all the time about this, but I feel like it's my voice versus the environment's voice, also the influencer's voice, that we're clashing. We keep clashing because it seems like most humans will ultimately always take the easy route. But in my mind, and I agree with this 100%, if you always do what's hard, life becomes very easy because hard becomes easy to those who always do what's hard. What most people don't understand is easy is only easy for those who want to continuously do what's easy. But easy will remain easy and their life will never be to the magnitude of what they think it is because they always want life easy. And I'll say this one more time for you. If you look at the word hard, the people that embrace that challenge called hard don't even realize that life is hard for them because they've always accepted everything to be hard. So what happens is they work hard, they study hard, they play hard. Everything they do is hard. So in their mind, it's easy because hard becomes easy for those who continuously do what's hard. But easy will always get the bad results. People look for the easy way through life expecting great results, but in reality, I've noticed in my whole time of chasing success, everyone I come around that's successful, they work very hard. And it's realistic, but yet and still, people really believe that they're going to be successful with doing what's easy. And I don't understand that. And it bothers me. But I do have another question for you, right? Do you think, right, that you and your environment have a lot of common interests?
Yeah. So I'm not gonna take credit for this because actually my boyfriend who says this, but you are like the average of the like 5 closest people around you, like the 5 people in your closest inner circle. And
Give your boyfriend
there's
a round
a
of
lot
applause. Give your boyfriend a round of applause. Shut up, Kenzie. Because he's definitely right, but I want to hear where you're going with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that, I think. Like, I have a lot of people in my circle that are really hardworking and have that growth mindset, but I also have some people who aren't
Want to turn up?
quite there. Yeah,
They want to do this?
They,
That's what they want to do?
yeah, and there's some people who work hard, but they like okay, so the whole like work smarter, not harder thing, I feel
Yes.
like we need to rework that a little bit because you need to work smart, but then you need to like multiply that with like the work ethic and working hard, right?
Agreed.
Because some people work really hard and they have like all these part-time gigs or whatever, right? And they're working multiple jobs, but they're not necessarily getting anywhere, Like they're just staying in that paycheck to paycheck place.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But you know what it is? Like, here's the logic. For me, and this is me jumping into finances real fast. I don't have a financial institutional degree, but I understand economics. Why do I understand economics? Because I understand that money has to work for you. One thing you have to do is understand that in order to become successful, before you can become successful, you have to be, one thing I will say this, and I'm going to go on record and say this. When you truly understand that in order for you to be successful, you have to be a slave first. What I mean by the word slave doesn't have a color in America. Let's just call it what it is. You have Spanish, Asians, blacks, whites, right? You have to literally buy back your freedom in America. And what I mean by buying back your freedom is employing your economics. You have to employ your money to work for you, so therefore you can work less. So here's the common sense. Most people take their money, they buy liabilities, right? And then they cry about having to work on the plantation more and more and more and more, which is the job force. They complain. They go buy the Benz, they buy the vacations, they buy the nice clothes, they buy all the materialistic things that give them no return on their investment, and then they cry about being stuck on the hamster wheel. You're stuck on the hamster wheel because what you're supposed to do is go to the plantation, take some of the fruits, plant them in your yard, and then soon you'll start eating from your own garden. But yet and still, people keep thinking that if I continuously do the same foolish things, I'm going to fake it till I make it, and ultimately something is going to spring from a garden I never planted a flower or a fruit or a vegetable in. That's not going to happen. The realities of all things is you have to literally go to the plantation, which is, of course, the job force. Take those seeds and then start investing in your own plantation. So now you'll start seeing some of the fruits of your own labor. What do you feel about that?
I agree 100%.
So let's go into this question right here. Nature versus nurture. Now, women tend to have a better gift at nurturing than men. In most cases, I've noticed that most women are better nurturers than than men. So as a female, I'm not that great of a nurturer. I'm going to say that straight up. not dealing with my own. I can do it if need be, but I'm more of a provider. And I know you're around me a lot. You see that I go hard. I can provide. But let me ask you a question. When you hear the words nature versus nurture, what is the first things that come to mind?
Well, being a science teacher, the first thing that comes to mind is so nature really is just the tool set that you are given at birth, right? It's your DNA, it's your programming, it's the parts of your personality and who you are
Okay.
that aren't really going to change, right?
Okay.
But nurture is the parts of you that are shaped by your environment and the people who raise you, whether that be, it's not just your family, right? It's your
Yes.
school, it's your community, it's
Yes.
your barbershop,
Yes.
it's everything, right? It's your community. So I think that nurture is so important because, right, it can make or break someone. Someone
it's the
could
molding,
be
right?
born
It's like the
a
molding?
genius. Yeah.
It's the
Someone can be
molding.
born a genius with all the potential in the world, right? But if they come from a broken household and they come from a lot of trauma or maybe a significant death in their family, maybe they were homeless growing up. There's all of these traumatic things that can happen to a kid that hold them back. But I mean, it's more than that too. A kid could be born in a not great situation or a not great family situation, but if they
Agreed.
have a great community and they're able to go to rec centers or they're the community public spaces and receive that support elsewhere, then
I agree.
that can also
Shape
help
you.
shape them. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that nurture is super super important. There's been a lot of studies about this too. Nature does play a huge role in who someone is, but nurture is almost as significant or more
So,
so. Yeah.
so do you think that this is the reason why a lot of people limit themselves because of the nature versus nurture?
Um.
So let me go a little
Yeah.
bit more.
Yeah. Their environment. Yeah.
So let's say okay, my father was a janitor, my mom was a secretary. In the environment I grew up in, most people are in gangs, most people are on drugs, most people are actively doing the things that work against us from winning, right? Do you think that's the nature, the nurturing is the reasoning why they put those mental limits on themselves? Like, you know what? I'm only gonna be what my neighborhood is. Everybody over here is failing, so it is what it is. You think that a young person or a developing person could feel like that?
Yes, for sure. I think like there's examples of being in an impoverished kind of place and not and limiting yourself and not wanting more, but there's also a lot of examples of really wealthy people who they know they're going to be handed over their families multi-million dollar company or they know that they don't have to work to meet their basic needs and be successful in life.
Yes.
So they're just chilling. They're the influencers or whatever, and they're vacationing and traveling and doing whatever. But I feel like you can also be depressed and have all the money in the world. Money doesn't buy
Agreed.
happiness.
Agreed.
It's important. You want to meet your basic needs and
Say that again. Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
money does not buy happiness, right? You want money because you want to meet your basic needs. You want to be comfortable and you want to get to a place why people are investing and trying to accumulate a lot of wealth that they can pass on is so that they can focus on the things that really matter. Like you, for example, you don't need to work in your barbershop. You're in a financial place where you could do whatever, but you get satisfaction and fulfillment from serving your community and giving back and teaching what you've learned about financial literacy to your community, right?
Agreed.
And everyone needs purpose, and that's ultimately, I think, how you achieve happiness. It's not through money. Not through money. It's not through fancy cars, huge houses, lavish vacations. It's through finding your
Those are
purpose
wants.
and
Those are not necessities. Those are wants.
right, and giving back to your community, to your family, to humanity, society, the
Yes.
world, the environment, things that really matter, right? At the end
I
of the
agree.
day.
I agree. You know something crazy? When I look at everything, right, and I see the word money, right? We talk about money. When I see a hammer, right? A hammer's job is to nail or to hammer a nail, right? When I see a drill, it is to screw something in, right? When I see a door, it is to keep something out. When I see you keep going a camera, it is to take pictures. It is to take video of whatever the circumstance is. When I hear the word money, I see money as a tool. And money is only a tool, like you said earlier, to get you financial freedom. So therefore, you can do what you really love and you get to enjoy your life. You know, that's what I see money as. People value money way too much because of the point that they feel like if I had money, my life would be so much better. I'm gonna tell you something, money can't buy your family health. If your mother is sick and she has stage 4 cancer, money's not gonna change that. Money is not going to make the fact that your child was born with a mental illness change that. Money is not going to literally put you in a better mental space if you're unhappy or depressed, and you know for a fact that it's not the money that you're depressed by. It's the fact that you have tons of people around you who only see you for your money and they don't value you for you. So now you have tons of fake people around you and you really believe that they love you. You know, like I've learned how to build a circle around me for people that genuinely love me and support me for me. One thing people always say is, Q, you're good at finding good spirits. I said, why? Because I allow God to lead me. I don't force puzzles to fit into places they don't fit. If it don't fit, it don't fit. You know, I'm not going to make someone somebody they're not. I've learned how to accept people for who they are. Once you show me who you are, I'm going to accept it from that very moment. And now I know where to place you. You know, it's just how I am. In most cases, I always tell people I am not the first person that will hurt or break my relationship with somebody else. In most cases, people will do that to me first. But I've always given them rope and allowed them to hang themselves. And the reason being is because I don't want to be the person that initiate the problem. But I have a real question for you, and I really want everybody I want you to tap into this question.
Okay.
This question is a real question. And I'm only asking this question because I want everyone to hear this from her mouth. Does white privilege exist?
Short answer, yes. There's no denying that, right? I don't know how many people have seen, like, if we use the analogy of like a race, right? Like white people have like a head start in the race of life, right? Unfortunately, because of the roots of colonialism, like they run deep, and not even just in America, but worldwide. Like you see colorism in Asian countries, right? And that's the influence of European, Caucasian white people, you know, spreading around the world and taking power and spreading that influence of the, you know, superiority of whiteness, or, you know, and of course, it's taken years, it's taken hundreds of years to kind of change that narrative and change like what has been instilled in history and in like the generations of, because you know generationally like people pass down certain things like, oh, you need to look this certain way or sound this certain way or speak this certain way in order to make it in life. And I know that happens in communities that aren't white because of the white influence. And so there's a shift that's happening, and I wish that it would happen faster, honestly, because like I know another thing that we're going to talk about is white guilt, and I have a lot of white guilt, honestly. Like
elaborate.
I'm from Maine originally, and Maine is an extremely white state, probably like 95% white. I grew up in a not racist household. Like I grew up in, for those of you who know, like a Unitarian Universalist church, which is like spiritual based and like really just promotes that idea of like celebrating differences and differences in religion and cultures and backgrounds. And
Wow.
I grew up for part of my upbringing in Lewiston, Maine, which actually has a large Somalian immigrant community. So I did grow up with Black people in my community, even though in a lot of towns in Maine, there isn't really a lot of people of color. So I think once I went to the University of Maine, once I went to college and met my boyfriend who's Black and came down to Long Island and met his family, and after college I lived with his family for a bit, and like, you know, I'm in his community right now. Like you know, you're his barber. Like you have been cutting his hair since he was a kid. Yeah. And so like because I am surrounded by people who are not white, I can really learn and see how the influence of like white supremacy impacts people of different races, of different colors, of POC people, right? Like, and so I feel bad as a white person. Like, I don't want all this white privilege. I wish that I could just like give it to
Equal.
yeah, like yeah, and but I also have to be really aware of it and how I can use it for good and have the hard conversations when I come
Agreed.
across white
Agreed.
people who assume that because I am also white that they can spew their racist rhetoric and that maybe I'll agree with them. So it's been a learning process for me because out of sight, out of mind. In Maine, even though I grew up with that equality mindset and believing that differences were good and that they were important, and that's actually why I partly chose to study anthropology my first year of college, to learn about different cultures. Like, it's you can't just have that mindset of like I don't see color, like, because it also negates the experiences of the people of color who are experiencing racism
I agree.
regularly,
I
who
agree.
are oppressed and who are in unfortunate positions because of there were laws not that long ago that made it hard for people of color, black people, native people to purchase property and
Agreed.
land,
Agreed.
and
Agreed.
so like there are these systems that are still in place in America and in the world that keep white people ahead of everyone else.
I agree. I agree.
And it sucks. And even seeing like the people that I love and care about like experiencing racism even on Long Island, like coming from Maine, I was like, it's so diverse down here. Everyone's intermingling. Like, it's great.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's also like self-segregated. Like there's pockets of communities that are predominantly white. And then you see that redlining where next to that predominantly white community, there's a predominantly black or Latinx community that like you just see the difference, right? Like the white community has all the old growth, the beautiful
Agreed.
100-year-old
Agreed.
trees and is well cared for and has landscapers there, like feels like 24/7.
It
And then
changed.
the right next door, it's just all concrete. There's not a lot of trees. It's clearly impoverished and it sucks and I hate it.
I
But
agree. But you want to hear something
yeah.
crazy for me?
Yeah.
You know the one thing I love about the new generation, and people talk bad about the new generation, like they always speaking like the older generation always talking negative about the new generation. But the one thing I love about the new generation, and I'm gonna give them their flowers. The one thing I see with the new generation, the racism is definitely changing. I'm gonna tell you why it's changing. You're having a lot of young white kids who are growing up in very white areas who are actually going to college. And the stories that they told them about black people, they're intermingling and seeing it. It's not true. We live in a generation now where more kids, see, when I was growing up, it was do as you were told. Whatever you were told, that's what you do. Now the curiosity is heightened. More children are curious, like, wait, why did you tell me black people are like this and now I'm around black people? I'm seeing that it's not to be true. And also, black kids are starting to see the same thing also. I've noticed, a quick story. One time I was talking to one of my good friends. He's black. He's always the victim guy. Slavery exists. We know it to be true. This is facts. He thinks in his mind that all white people are racist. And I said, I disagree with this statement. He said, why? I said, because one of my very, very, very prominent people that I love is Harriet Tubman. Harriet shows the strength and the power of a woman. I don't care if she's black or white. She shows the strength of a woman. I come from a single mother. My mother always made me read and do my reports on Harriet Tubman. So Harriet became one of my prominent as far as leaders in life in the whole slave revolution. I'm gonna tell you why I love Harriet. Harriet, she learned how to intermingle, right? Quote unquote, infiltrate white homes, which is her Underground Railroad. Her Underground Railroad was homes of white people who allow blacks to stay in their home and to get to the next station, right? Which is the next home. So it was a channel of white homes along the road. So my question is this. I always say to him, how could all white people be racist when the whole Underground Railroad was a channel of white homes? Let me say this again. Harriet Tubman is a black woman who learned how to mingle with white people and allow them to help her get more blacks to freedom. So when people tell me that all whites are racist, I said it's impossible, because even in slave times, these white people knew that it was punishable by death if they caught you harboring or hiding slaves. So this could not be true. I'm like, listen, there are tons of people that are racist that are black, white, Spanish, and anything else that falls in between, right? But yet and still, there are people who are practicing ignorance. That's what the real issue is ignorance. And then there's people losing their power. You know, people don't want to lose their power and their positioning. If Tom, let's just use him as a white guy, I'm just saying it, not to be racist. Let's say Tom, he wants his children, of course, to have an easier life, right? And let's say Tom is white privileged. Tom doesn't want his children to have to work as hard. And I think that's most parents. You know, they don't want their children to have to work as hard to get the opportunities that they feel like they're entitled to. They're entitled to these opportunities. So this is how Tom feels. And over generations, Tom was told that he has every bit of right to feel this way. This is where you have the very famous name that we like to say a lot, Karen. Karen comes from that generation of people who feel very entitled. You know, and I don't know the name of what's the guy that does it? The guys that act like that? They call him what? What's the name for the guys, guy?
I don't know.
Karen is the girl, and what's the name for the guys? It doesn't matter. It's somebody.
I like Tom.
Tom. But, you know, the reality of all things is, you know, I could never believe that all white people could be racist. And from me doing my own studies, it told me that it's impossible. See, but true, he said Joe Biden. But, you know, for me, and look, even her, she comes from a predominantly, not predominantly, almost 95% area that is white. Yet and still met a black man, right? Fell in love with this guy, moved to a whole nother state with this guy, right? And came around all his friends and family and also felt comfortable being naturally who she is. She doesn't force the relationship. So when I tell people all the time, we got to stop pushing this narrative. See, what I realize in society is the separation thing has caused too much problems. I don't believe in separation. I do believe that when separation is needed, is a person of a bad mentality or a person that's pushing the wrong agenda. Those are the people we need to exile. But this country called the United States of America, it is impossible for me to accept someone here racist. It is too much interaction with culture. It's a big melting pot of people that have done things to build it. It's a big melting pot. So when I look at a white person or a black person, the one thing I love, and I have to say this, my social media platform has shown me that there are tons of white people who does not have the same financial literacy that we're taught and we believed. There are tons of white people in my DM always asking me, could you help me with finances? See, the thing is, most black people believe that all white people have this financial literacy. I'm traveled. I've met tons of people around the states who don't have the financial literacy. They could be white, they could be black, they could be Hispanic. Listen, there's only 1% of this country that has wealth. 1%. 84 to 86% of the country's population live paycheck to paycheck, whether gainfully employed or underemployed. That's whites, that's blacks, that's blues, that's greens. That's everything that falls in between. So the reality of all things is, let's stop pushing this false narrative about separation. I don't agree with it. And the reason why I don't agree with it, because white people play a major part, black people play a major part. And if you do believe in a God, I don't care what his name is or her name is, whatever you want to call it, there's no way that God can tell me as a black man, I'm only supposed to like black people. I find that to be an ignorant God. You created this person, but yet and still you're going to tell me to not love it? You created me and you're going to tell them to not love me? See, let's stop pushing this poor man's agenda. Because it's only doing the devil's work, and I'm not doing the devil's work. I'm going to help people believe that unification in all colors and all looks matter. because I think everyone could bring something to the table. Everyone could bring something to the table. And I want to say one more thing before I pass it back over to you, Jessima. I don't believe there's a such thing as talking white. I'm going to say this one more time. I don't believe there is a such thing as talking white. I do believe this. You have white people that have their own slang. You have black people that have their own slangs. But when we talk about talking the proper English language, there is no white, there is no black. There is no colorization to the way you speak. It's either you're super educated or you're undereducated. More educated people tend to talk more properly. It's just what it is. So when people say this, I'm like, you're giving white people a little bit too much credit. Because I've traveled. I've been places where people say, hey, howdy, boy, what's going on? That's how they talk. And that doesn't sound like the traditional, quote unquote, proper English that we've been accustomed to hearing or told that that's only white. So for the black people that talk very proper, Kenzie, Chris, I want to give you guys your flowers and understand that it's just proper English. And I'm tired of people pushing this wrong agenda. I don't push that narrative because I know it not to be true. Because I've met white people that don't talk that proper at all. Tons of them. Tons by the boatloads. We call our neighborhoods, they call it the black neighborhoods projects. We call their projects trailer parks. I've seen both sides of the spectrum. So understand, guys, we got to stop pushing this poor negative narrative, rather. But I want to ask you another question, though. What do you think is a realistic mindset that people should have as overall?
Realistic mindset. I just want to give you kudos to what you just said, though, because
Let me hear this.
that was literally part of our PD, our professional development last week, because we're in orientation for the new school year.
Nice.
Like, our white female principal was like, hey, white teachers, like, get over your white guilt. Like, you need to correct our students when they're not speaking grammatically correct, even if you think that could be construed as racist, because it's not. It's literally just your job as an educator to make sure that they are using proper grammar, because they're going to need it to be successful in school and in life and in writing and speaking, etc. So yeah, I agree.
I love it because look, we have to realize this. By breeding and teaching separatism and separation is only killing the culture's essence. We know the Indians found this land, right? They discovered America. We understand all of this. We know the whole stories. We get it. We understand it. But the only issue I have is this. We're here now. In order for us to move forward, we got to accept the faults of others. I'm not going to blame Jessima for her ancestors. Her great-great-grandfather could have been the KKK king. That's not her. Clearly, she brought home a black man. I think she went against what he wanted. But anyway, that's not the case. That's not what I'm saying. My point is, let's break the mold and start understanding that we need to bring more togetherness. And I love her because my younger brother, which is her boyfriend, they date. And the one thing I love about them, and I'm saying this on record, he can't do no better than her. And I'm saying this honestly. She accepts everything about him. But his goofy, weird self at times. She loves him. And I don't think when God creates people for people, I don't think he creates a color. I think he just creates a heart, a mindset. As far as their mentalities, they mesh. And I'm very proud that he found someone he can look at and love him for him. Because I want him to be happy. And the fact that she makes him happy, I'm happy. And that's my reality. But one thing I want to talk about before we get out of here is, what do you think are some strategies or some things that we can do to move the mindset forward?
Ooh, okay, so I think...
I know you said something about self-development.
Yeah.
You can go into a little bit of that, though.
Self-development. Okay, yeah, so I think that, people need, especially the younger generation, needs to get out of that mindset of that self-satisfaction. You were talking about influencers earlier, and
Yes.
something I wanted to talk about was that a lot of younger people want to be YouTubers, want to be TikTokers, and think that they can just make it doing that. They don't need to go to college. They don't need to have any other job or any other financial pursuits. And that goes back to like teaching financial literacy in schools, like teaching about investments and real estate and saving and like retirement accounts, right? So I think that like we need to tell kids like it's not realistic to just be a YouTuber.
It's a very small percentage of people that make money off of YouTube.
And if that's your passion, like you're gonna have to work damn hard for it, because those people make it look easy, but it's a lot of hard work.
It is.
And typically it's more than a 9 to 5. Like you're working more than 40 hours a week. You're
That's the
working
definition of an entrepreneur.
all the time. Yeah, it's
we work hard.
For those of us who have worked virtually or still working virtually, it's like you don't get that separation of like work and home a lot of those times, and you're working all the time. So it's, you know, like sure, you could be a YouTuber, but you're gonna have to work really hard at it, especially now that it's so saturated.
Agreed.
And even like with TikTok, like I don't think that's even as financially realistic as being a YouTuber. Like it's a lot harder to like make a good income from TikTok. Like you can make supplemental income from TikTok, and that's great, but you know, maybe also pushing that idea of a side hustle to kids. Like, hey, go to college, do this career. But also like, here's some, if you're really passionate about this like one thing, like maybe you're really into creating art or something that isn't necessarily like a feasible, stable career goal. Like, hey, yeah, like find something else that you're interested in somewhat that you can actually make a good income and get insurance from and stuff. But like at the same time, you can have that side hustle of like an Etsy shop or something and pursue that passion and make money from it, in addition to your career. So I think like not telling kids they can't do what it is they want to do, but just being realistic about it and giving them those options that we know are there, that can make their dreams come true in a realistic way, you know?
I agree with everything she just said, guys. For everyone that tunes in every week, I want to thank you guys. We talked about mindset today. You know, my book just actually came out. It's called The Art of Reprogramming the Mindset. Justin, you tapped into it yet? Did you start reading it?
I'm going to Barnes & Noble today, I promise.
Just getting it today, guys. That's what's up. But, you know, The Art of Reprogramming the Mindset is officially out. You know, you can check me out on Amazon, on Barnes & Nobles. The Art of Reprogramming the Mindset. We talk about the mentality. And what I've learned is, even listening to her speak, and, you know, we come from two complete different worlds, but we understand each other because we speak the same language. And the language we speak is building ourselves to be better selves. You know, and that's what the main language is, building ourselves to be better selves. And also being examples of the positivity that we want to see in the world. You know, I'm trying to be what I want to see in the world. I want to see more people happy. I want to see more people believing in themselves and developing themselves. So I've created this book in order to, it's just like a self-development book, you know, The Art of Reprogramming the Mindset again. But I will say this before we get out of here. The mentality and the mindset is everything. You are the way you think, and your results are a reflection of the way you think. Let me say that one more time. The mentality and the mindset is everything. The way you think and the way you view and the way you see life determines your whole totality of results. When you look at somebody 20, 30, 40 years of existing, that is a summary of all their decisions and every decision they've made. You are the results of the thinking, and also because in life, it starts as a thought that leads to actions that ultimately lead to results. You are the results of your thinking. So understand, by programming your mind to think better, you'll get better results. Never allow yourself to self-sabotage and be a victim of your own circumstance because you're not willing to change your life and change your results by the way you change your thinking. Change your thinking, you'll change your results, and you also change everything in your life that you want. Until next time, guys, before we go, let me tell you, shout your Instagram out real quick.
Oh, I think it's just Jessima I think it's at just Jessima. JUSTJESSIMA.
Go follow her, guys. Go show her some love. Also, follow me on Instagram at QDaboss516, QDABOSS516. Also, go follow the Don't Let That Go Over Your Head podcast on Instagram also. And lastly, we are officially killing YouTube. Empowered Dynasty on YouTube, guys. We're killing it. And if anybody want to tap into the YouTube, click the link in the bio. and it take you right to all the content. We'll keep running this thing up and keep having these positive messages. Until next time, you already know what we're going to say to you guys. Don't let that go over your head.